Hi and praise the Lord. Welcome once again to this encouragement, still discussing and thinking about the word focus. And today we are talking about focusing your mind. Remember, day one we talked about focus in general, and we said that the place where we need to focus on is a place where we find our life. And we saw that the only place we find our life is in Jesus Christ. Now, in the second teaching of this series of focus, I talked about focus your trust, and we said that we need to be focusing our trust in God. In this one, we are talking about focusing on our mind. And please allow me to read Romans chapter 8, verse 5 to 6, and this is what the Bible says. Those who live according to the flesh have their minds set on what the flesh desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their minds set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Now, these are very powerful words here. And please just allow me to look at this verse and say, when the Bible used the word, those who live according to the flesh, the verb, the preposition that actually been translated according to is actually an expression of a motion downwards. In other words, we are talking about those who are downwardly approaching or living like the flesh. Those who are downwardly approaching or living life according to or after the Spirit. So it is very important to note that. It is also important to note that the verb actually translated here as the mind can also be translated as having their thinking, having their judgment, having, seeking for or caring for. So when we are talking about those who live according to the flesh, have their minds, they have their thinking, they have their caring, they have their seeking, they have their judgment to it. So the Bible I will literally or loosely translate or read the word, for those who are after the flesh have their minds thinking, care, seek for the function of our body that let them do willfully. The flesh is that function of our body used in the Bible as a function of our body that, it let us do willfully. So, but those who are after the Spirit have their minds, their thinking, their care for the desires of the Spirit, which are fruits and gifts of the Spirit, which is in obedience. My friends, this passage here is an encouragement to us that we need to set our minds. We need to set our minds. We need to think of. We need to care for the things of the Spirit. Remember, in the first teaching on the theme focus, I said there are only two places where you can focus: on what is supposed to be focused on and any other thing. Now, here we are seeing you either focus on the Spirit or you focus on the flesh. What is it that your flesh wants? What is it that your spirit wants? What is the desire of the Spirit? Now, if you focus on the flesh will lie to us. Now, remember, in Genesis chapter 6, the Bible is saying that men in their own minds, in their own thinking, were thinking of evil and evil alone. Every inclination of their thoughts was evil, So that is the danger of depending on the flesh. My friends, Isaiah chapter 26 verse 3 says, those whose minds are steadfast in God, he will keep in perfect peace. Colossians 3:2, set your minds on things above, not on the earthly things. Romans 12:3, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. God is calling us to constantly focus our minds to Him, focus our thinking to Him, focus our care to Him in the things of the Spirit. Be careful with what the flesh wants, even right now. And especially when times are hard, that is what the flesh wants. My encouragement to us today, be careful with what the flesh wants. Even as you are hearing this encouragement right now, because the Bible tells us in verse 6 that the flesh leads to death. The flesh is actually death. And please, when you have your mind in the Spirit, the Bible tells us the Spirit is life and peace. All of us, we want life and we want peace. But our flesh will always desire things that ultimately will lead us to death. And my prayer for all of us is that even in a moment that we have a lot of alternatives to choose from, we can always be obedient to that which the Spirit of God says, because the Spirit of God never lies. He has assurance that is in us. Shalom.